So we are approaching our first session in this morning, which will be just a minute.
Not this one. This is something. This is not connection with this.
Oh no, I want the key. We are starting a session, strategies for natural history museums in a world of challenges. And before I introduce the first speaker, I would like to let you know each speaker has 15 minutes as a lot, which means that it includes my introduction, so I'm going to make it very short. The other thing is that our translators ask us, please speak slowly, not too slow, but slowly, so they can translate, because they are listening to what you're saying and they're translating it right on listening. So please make sure that you slow your thing. And I have these notes, which will let you know how much time you have been left for speaking during this speech. So the first speaker is Juhi SADIYA from India. She is assistant professor of Indian Institution of Heritage from India, from Delhi. And she is also a member of the board of ICOM-Nathist, and because she's dealing with museology, but she has a history with natural history museums, so she joined us in this session.
Thank you everyone. I'm honored to be part of this conference and to be here to present my findings and research. And good morning, everyone. Bonjour. So I'm going to present on the topic Reimagining India's Natural History Museums. As you know, I'm working as assistant professor of museology in India. So as part of our academic mandate, my university is also working on action research projects, and one of our academic action research project is which focuses on making Indian museums accessible and inclusive for the diverse sections of Indian society. So the findings that I'm sharing here have been collected as part of my doctoral research on natural history museums of India, and also of the surveys that I have been conducting on several action research projects for the past 10 years. Here, I'm going to talk about the current situation of natural history museums in India with a brief overview of their origin and historic development. I'm also going to discuss how integration of socio-cultural elements of nature within natural history museums of India can boost public interest effectively to address socio-ecological challenges. So, giving a brief overview of the natural history museums in India, out of total 1,200 museums in India at present, only 10 museums are exclusively dedicated to natural history. Besides these 10 museums, there are 95 museums which contain collection of natural history, apart from other kind of collections that they have, which includes art, archaeology, crafts, etc. So around 40 museums on natural history are being run by colleges and universities, apart from the above-mentioned 95 museums. And all these museums are administered by the Government of India, whether at the national level or at the state level. And some are being run by the different surveys like geological, botanical, and geological survey. So out of the 10 dedicated natural history museums that I was talking about, National Museum of Natural History, along with its 4 regional branches, are working with the vision to promote environmental awareness among the masses. The rest of the museums are still focusing on showcasing natural heritage of the country with a very limited focus on promoting environmental awareness. Looking at the historical context of the natural history museums in India, natural history collection in early Indian museums have British colonial legacy. It can be said that nearly all the museums, with very few exceptions, established in the 19th century, started with the collection of natural history. And the portrayal of natural history collection was an important part of the vision and discussion of museum professionals and decision makers of that time. So the initial purpose was collecting, studying, and exhibiting the exotic flora and fauna of the country. This also led to the establishment of natural history societies in the 19th and early 20th century, which significantly contributed to the early collection of Indian natural history museums. I have given several examples. So I will not discuss each and every one due to the paucity of time, but the first museum, that is the Indian Museum Kolkata, which was established in 1814 in India, during the British colonial rule. So it started with Asiatic Society of Bengal, and the focus was on natural history collection only. If we trace the origin and development of natural history collection in India during the pre-independence period, we can see that there were total 105 museums as of 1936 report. So there were, out of these 105, there were 41 museums which were dealing with natural history collection. And if we take into account only the public museums and excluding the 13 college and university museums that I have mentioned here, which were only for the students, which were not open to the public. So looking at the figure, it can be said that 27% of the total museums in India at that point of time were showcasing natural history collection to the general public. Talking about the post-independence period, in post-independence period, there were total 174 museums as of 1959. And at that time, there were 50 museums with natural history collection. And again, if we look at those museums which were open to the general public, there were only 18% of the total museums which were showcasing natural history collection to the general public. So we can see that the percentage of museums displaying natural history collection declined from 1936 to 1959. So there was a transformation of Indian natural history museums. The rate of growth in the number of museums containing natural history collection faced a fast decline since the mid-20th century. However, the establishment of National Museum of Natural History in 1978, and then subsequent regional branches of this museum, are noteworthy achievements of the late 20th and 21st centuries in India. So the establishment of National Museum of Natural History, which we call it as NMNH, marked a major transformation, which was influenced by the increased global awareness of environmental issues. This shift redefined the purpose of India's Natural History Museum, focusing on raising awareness about nature conservation and promoting non-formal environmental education to the general public, because many of them cannot afford formal education as well, though it is free till the age of 14 years. Unfortunately, the National Museum of Natural History that I am talking about got burnt in 2016 due to a fire incident, and the salvaged objects have been moved to its 4 regional branches, which are in different parts of India, which I have shown on the map. And you can see in New Delhi, it burned down, and I've shown it there. In the northeastern part of India, there is going to be a new regional branch of the Natural History Museum, which is going to be opened soon. So looking at the current position of natural history museums in India, if we look at the directory published in 2013 and latest in 2023, it can be seen that we have still 9 dedicated natural history museums in India. But this was the report as of 2023. In 2024, 1 more museum has come up. So in total, out of total 1,176, nearly about 1,200 museums, we have only 10 dedicated natural history museums in India, and which are quite few in number. So the changing trend of natural history museum that I was talking about can be seen in this bar graph. So many new museums are being established in India. In fact, it has gone from 105 to nearly 1,200. That is from 1936 report to 2023 report. But museums dedicated to natural history are not coming up. The major focus is on museums of art, archaeology, and craft of the country. And if we look at the Indian society, so India is a large country, as you all know, with such a large population, and the country is primarily rural agricultural one, with around 34% of the people living in urban areas, and the rest are living in rural areas. So to serve such a big population and such a diverse population, which is not diverse in terms of geography, but in terms of ethnicity, in terms of culture, in terms of religious aspect, there are so much of diversity, socio-economic, cultural diversity. So there are very few museums to serve the need of such a big, large population, and they are not evenly distributed in a rational manner to serve the such needs of such a big population. And if we see the biodiversity of India, it is not like that we do not need to have more natural history museums, because as our focus is more on cultural history and culture, so our natural heritage is also very rich, and these figures represent that. So we need to have more natural history museum to showcase that and to bring environmental awareness among the masses. As the rest of the world, we are also facing environmental crisis. So there are national parks. So as of 2021 report, there are 104 national parks to showcase, to preserve, and to promote this biodiversity of our country. And these are, I have categorized it because we have 29 states and union territories in India, so I've classified according to different states and union territories. So we have so many. But museums as cultural and natural history institutions are very few to serve this purpose. So there is an immense need to have more natural history museum and to reimagining the existing natural history museums in India. So we can see that natural history museums worldwide are evolving in terms of their mandates and core functions with the changes in biodiversity and climate, and the needs of society are also changing. But in the Indian context, these museums need to be conceptualized and managed according to the needs of the Indian society. In India, still public is not too aware of the essence of museums because India is not a museum-going society. And if they are aware about museums, they are not aware about the relevance of natural history museums. They compare it with zoo and botanical gardens, and they don't know why to visit these natural history museums. So that's why it is very essential, and I am also working on it as an academician to work in this regard to understand the needs of our societies, and so that we can plan our exhibitions to make our Indian Natural History Museum more relevant and meaningful. So the current status is predominant focus is on art and archaeology museums rather than natural history museums, remain in the backseat. So as I said, we are facing identity crisis for natural history museums, and we have very few museums which are unevenly distributed. So there is a lack of interest among the general public, and these museums are mostly visited by the school groups. So because in schools, it has been made a compulsory visit to visit these natural history museums which correspond to their formal education system. Otherwise, the general public are not very much visiting these museums. But if we look, it is not like this that we do not have any relationship with the natural history or natural history museum. There is symbiotic relationship. If we look at the museum landscape in India, so we can see that people are interested in cultural aspect of the heritage. It's interesting that we have symbiotic relationship of nature and culture, and if we look at the prehistoric cave paintings in India and the seals of an ancient Indian civilization, nature has always been depicted as part of our cultural tradition. In India, plants, trees, rivers are protected and preserved mainly because of the sacred beliefs associated with the natural elements. So the examples that I have mentioned here illustrate how nature and culture are deeply interconnected in India, with each influencing and enriching the other. So in such a country where sacred beliefs and cultural traditions are playing a critical role in boosting conservation efforts and increasing green cover in India, Natural History Museum can be made more relatable and engaging for diverse audiences by incorporating socio-ecological narrative. I have shared a few select case studies. So Natural History Museum started working in this regard to integrate culture in these museums. So first displays of, about the forest conservation movement in India, which opposed to commercial lodging and the government's policies on deforestation, and where you can see that people are hugging the trees. And the other example is of the Bishnoi community, who are very famous for their love for nature because of their sacred beliefs, and they sacrifice their lives to protect these trees. So natural history museums are also showcasing these kind of efforts, and it has also been very meaningful. The next example is of the Intangible Cultural Heritage Gallery, which was introduced in the National Museum of Natural History at that time. So it was about, so many people visited it. It was visited by people in large number, and it was very popular because people are more interested in understanding the culture, and that's how they are getting to know about the nature, and it's also helping in promoting environmental awareness. So such integration can be really helpful. And these are the future prospects that I have already mentioned. We need to have public interest in natural history museum, and we need to have more natural history museums in India. And by integrating local communities to display the socio-cultural aspect, we can do it in this regard. Thank you. Sorry, I tried to.
Thank you very much. And we will have the question and answers session in the end of the session. So our next speaker will be Slavko SPASIĆ. He is the director of the Natural History Museum in Belgrade, Serbia. And he will be talking about preserving the past, inspiring the future. And he's also a member of the board of ICOM-Nathist.
Dear colleagues, it's a great pleasure to be here, to be with people who are admitted with nature, who are admitted to our home, our planet Earth. So, I will not talk about my museum, our museum in Serbia. We will talk in our coffee break and maybe lunch. Now I want to tell you something, and now I find almost in these two presentations common word. I will say common sentence, and we will talk about maybe in the part when it will be question and answers. So, yes, this is, you know, like content. So we will start with a powerful quote about the current state of the natural world. Marlee Matlin is an American actress, first deaf actress who got an Oscar. So Earth does not belong to us, we belong to the Earth. Reflects a profound and effectful perspective on our relationship with our planet. It suggests that rather than viewing the Earth as a resource to be owned and exploited, we should recognize that we are part of a larger interconnected ecosystem. So, first part of my presentation, introduction. Today, I will guide you through how museums can leverage their collections to make a difference. We will explore three key areas: marveling at the natural world through awe-inspiring exhibits, raising awareness about critical socio-ecological issues, and proposing hopeful futures through sustainable solutions. By balancing beauty with urgency and proposing actionable solutions, museum can play a pivotal role in shaping more informated and engaged society, of course. What is the role of museum of marveling? Let's dive into the first role of that museum play in marveling at nature. Museums have a unique opportunity to showcase the beauty of the natural world in a way that both captive and educate their visitor. So how do it? Challenges in interpretation are always difficult. That's in natural history museums, you know that. As they need to explain complex natural processes. It is not just a collection of paintings to be simply hung on the wall. In this sense, natural history museums play a crucial role in audience development, the holy grail of cultural policy in every country. As cultural participation starts from the youngest age, and to be honest, natural history museums are the most fascinating for them. That's our role. On the one side, my opinion, there are humanities museums, and on the other, natural history museums. Just believe and imagine how we are strong and different. Another thing, raising awareness about socio-ecological challenges. Museum can address environmental degradation, habitat loss, pollution, and climate changes through their collections, of course. They can use, this is a picture from a museum, Natural History Museum. I just will tell a few words. We are a very small museum. Next year we will celebrate 130 years. We have around 2 million specimens, and it is not a joke, we have only 100 quadrat meters of gallery. Yes, yes. But let's show you the end of this sad story. In one way, yes, we display our exhibits. We don't have a permanent exhibition. But we get award as the best museum in Serbia. Why? Because we travel all around Serbia. We travel all around region. We going to public, not just waiting for public. And of course, our exhibits is the most interesting to all children all around Serbia. This is one part of us. This is our exhibits in our small space. We have 2 buildings. One is our collections, and the other is gallery. Yes, it is on the beautiful part of Serbia, in Belgrade, but it is, you know, I must tell, 10 years ago when I speak like this, and I think person from ICOM tell me, wow, my room is bigger than your gallery. Please give me the number of your Ministry of Culture. No. I will call him and tell. But we found a solution. It will be the last slide. I'll show you. You know, we are dreaming 130 years, but I hope our dream comes true to get better condition. Of course, this is also, when I'm talking about rising awareness about socio-ecological challenges, visitor impact is the most important. Look, the eyes of that young girl. This is our traveling exhibition. Also, you cannot imagine, you know that, I know, the happiness of visitors when they visit our collection. Yesterday, as I told with Nicolas, imagine, and I agree with him, culture is not only art. Also, colleagues before me, you know the bolding word, Natural History Museums is some kind of background. Yes, it's true. They didn't recognize us. Important of natural history museums now, especially now, when Earth is in great danger. So, I will try to be quick. Next, of course, proposing rising awareness about socio-ecological challenges is also important thing. Let me to, Nicholas, it is your, I'm trying to manage. Up. Yes. Sorry. In summary, you know, museums have two power to transform their collection into a powerful tools for raising awareness about socio-ecological issues, of course, by documenting these challenges using innovative exhibits technique and sharing impactful case studies. Museums can inspire visitors to understand, care about, and act on these critical issues. Of course, to show beautiful, breathtaking landscapes, to use 20th century lot of multimedia interactive displays and compelling narratives, great storytellings, and also this is our museums. You know, at the essence, all the exhibitions is raised awareness and spread action at the end. You know, we are showing, of course, as you, our collection, but it is not enough. Storytelling is most important thing. Do not be aware for viewers to just look at the exhibits just in our museum. We must take action with our visitors. What is proposal? A desirable future. Exhibits highlighting successful conservation efforts and practical environmental actions. Of course, museums offer a vision of positive change. Inspiring hope, of course, to show sustainable solutions with displays, practical solution, technological, that individuals and communities can adopt and tackle environmental changes. At last, of course, the power of hope, that is most important. That's our vision, our tasks. Success stories and unfitted visuals, such as thriving ecosystems and recovered species, evoke optimism. Interactive elements like an impact calculator show how personal actions can contribute to broader positive outcomes. The power of hope lies in its ability to inspire not just feelings, but tangible actions toward a better future. By focusing on these elements, museums encourages visitors to see and act on the potential for a better, more sustainable future. Effective exhibit design involves a careful balance of three key roles: marveling, alerting, and proposing. Curatorial strategies focus on seamlessly integrated three elements to craft a compelling narrative. Exhibits should captivate visitors with awe-inspiring content, raise awareness about critical issues, and propose actionable solutions. Interactive and engaging elements play a crucial role in this process. By incorporating hands-on features and interactive displays, museum can change visitor engagement, making the experience both memorable and impactful. You cannot believe conclusion. Yes, I promise you, short. We will talk. In conclusion, museums are essential in celebrating nature through their exhibits, interactive displays, educational program, and storytelling. We are not just a simple depots. You know, I visited a lot of natural history museums, and building is not enough to be good museum, natural history museum. You have a big building. You have 10 million exhibits. It's not enough. You must be interesting. You must have storytelling. You must have idea. It is not just good depot. Of course, by inspiring wonder and appreciation, they strengthen our connection to the natural world, which is vital for advising conservation and environmental stewardship. Consider how your own institution or initiatives can embrace these roles to change environmental awareness and action. Of course, final road from our dear Jane Goodall. What you do make a difference, and you have to decide what kind of difference you want to make. Think about this. It's a great quote. This quote encapsulated the call to action and empowerment you are aiming for, encouraging reflection on personal impact and the role museums can play in inspiring change. And finally, I promise you, oops, do you see what some on this picture? What you see? Can you explain? When I also first see this picture, I see, wow, where is my museum? Do you find museum there? You know, I must tell, this is brave and conceptually monumental solution, and give hope that we will pass on the future generation everything I talk about today and everything we talk these days. It will be a new natural history museum in Belgrade on the river bank, on the Danube. You see, we are on the ground. No roof, no wall. Look, this is in front. In front, it is there people can walk. Don't look this one. And we are underground. Underground? Yes, not underground totally. Yeah, I finished. I must tell. My heart is beating too much because we are waiting for this 130 years. We will waiting for you. Our plans, it's like dreams, that it will be finished in 3 or 4 years in Belgrade. Welcome and thank you.
Thank you. We are all looking forward to coming and see your museum, new museum. Our next presentation will be engaging communities and collections, the ZUGvögel project and its role in socio-ecological discourse, and it's a group of presenters, Linda GALLÉ, the curator of exhibitions and deputy head of exhibition museum of Naturkunde Berlin. I hope I said it right. And also MOLDRZYK and Bonnie DIETERMANN. So please come.
Okay. Yeah. I promise we will be quick. At least we practice. practiced. Thank you very much for having us here. Bonnie, Linda, and me are here today to present our newest exhibition project, which actually deals with opening up our scientific collections to the visitors. And in Berlin, we are in the fortunate situation to have a team to produce our own exhibition shows, and we three are part of this team. How do I switch the slides? Oh, here, okay, cool. Thank you, Bonnie. That's always like this. Museum für Naturkunde belongs to the bigger natural history museums in Europe with roughly 30 million objects and about 800,000 visitors a year. We are housed in an old building with lots of wear and tear, and only 25% renewed or renovated since the end of the Second World War. And that changed with our Zukunftsplan, which is simply translated our future plan, which means we received grants to renovate and renew the complete museum and its buildings over the next 10 years or so. That sounds great, right? But it means construction within an existing building, and there are lots of challenges coming with that. To us, the major challenge is we need to have clearance for construction works, and that means things or collections do have to move to some place while we renovate the halls. In this case, we have 11,500 historical mounted specimens. They are vintage, not retro. You can see it here. They are not in perfect condition. They had to be cleaned and repaired and then stored in moving boxes. Lots of them. We closed the boxes, and now the question, where do we put them for the meantime? And our idea was, why not putting them into the exhibition? So we ordered a couple of glass plates and opened the boxes, our collection, and even our exhibition development process, as you will hear.
Thank you for that. So yeah, when opening up the collections and creating insights to our visitors, the main question was, what actually happens when the public is seeing the whole collection for the first time, when they're in a room full of objects? And how does this kind of different type of presentation really affects them, as you're not really expecting to see as many objects in one exhibition room? And that's why we involved visitors to really get their perspectives on our collections, and we wanted to hear what kind of questions do they have, what topics or even memories come to their mind when they see the objects for the first time. And that's why we created various opportunities to get involved and to speak with us. So at first, we kind of spontaneously asked our exhibition visitors if they would like to go behind the scenes. And we've not given them much information about the collection itself. It was more that they had time to look around and really explore the room on their own. And this really helped us to get a kind of first impression, or to really get a sense of their first impression on the objects and see how they react to all those kind of old specimen, and what objects might attract their attention first. And in addition to that, we offered workshops where we had more time to discuss all the objects in detail. But for us, it was important really to speak with non-experts. So we had conversation with our experts in the museum who do the research, who work in the collections. But it was important to us to open the process to non-experts and really gain new perspectives from the outside on the collections, and really to take the visitors' opinions just as seriously as the experts' opinions on certain topics. And what we also did is kind of create easygoing, low threshold offers, where people can just simply write down their thoughts and write them down on sticky notes, like we did on several events. So as you can see, you can just really put it near the objects where the question refers to. So we tested different formats and really kind of explored how we can use the objects to involve our visitors. And those formats resulted in collecting many different perspectives, because in the end, around about 350 people took part of a course of several months, and all the questions and input that we've got and they mentioned served as a source of inspiration for us and really shaped our curatorial process.
Thank you. Okay. Yes, and all the inputs that we collected resulted in a, I would say, wonderful exhibition project, and also very unique exhibition project for us. And by the way, freely translated, the title would mean something like Birds on the Move. So yeah, it's a bit about moving our collections. And on this slide, you get a view of the exhibition, how we opened it this summer. And the exhibition finally consisted of 7 topic areas, and these topics were defined by clustering all the visitor inputs or the participant inputs that we collected in the various formats my colleague Bonnie just told you about. And at the same time, while building the clusters and setting up the whole room, we also made sure that all the boxes are still accessible for our collection colleagues, because they will stay there maybe for several years until we can move them back into the renovated parts of the museum. And during that time, of course, the collection has to be monitored and it has to be accessible for research projects. And yeah, so as you can see here, they are stacked, and always on the first level, the boxes are set to the back, so you can still open the front doors and access all the objects. This is another angle, and we not only, so we didn't put windows on all the boxes, just on a certain amount of boxes. And the closed boxes we used to present also media installations in the exhibition, so that was mainly for more emotional, or bring the exhibition a little bit to life, because we have a lot of dead objects in there, only dead objects. The boxes turned out to be really good to place various information. So we have short stories, long stories. Here's an example where a story is really next to an object, so we could tell various stories and bigger topics. Yes, but being on a conference here, maybe the question is, what is special about this project? What did we learn, and why do we talk about it here, basically? And as Uwe mentioned earlier, we are a team of various professionals in the exhibition department. We have various backgrounds in design, storytelling, media planning, and whatnot. And we are trained to make exhibitions. But usually that means we choose objects and we stage them in a very thoughtful way. We build a scenography around them, we highlight this one object, we choose a mounting, we build a showcase, etc., etc. But here in this project, we had none of this. So we had a collection in boxes. We didn't even select which boxes got windows, but it was random, and we followed very much also the requirements of the collection and the people working with the collection. So we did not interfere with it, and we didn't change anything in the composition. And to be honest, without talking to the public, probably we would have addressed much more topics related to the history of the collection, maybe the conservation and things like that. And talking to the public or to the visitors showed us that when they look at the objects, a variety of questions and thoughts come to their mind. Yeah? So they don't see the dirty feathers, they don't see the old labels, they don't see like that the objects are, I don't know, rusty, old, whatever. But they see an old, and maybe they remember how they got as a child, they went on a holiday in the countryside and they hear the owls creaking at night, or they remember the Harry Potter movie they just watched and the owls in there. So a lot of different thoughts and different association came up, and so this, I would say this is special about it, because by opening the curatorial process, a lot of influence came into our team, and it has changed the final exhibition massively. Yeah? So we brought in topics in the end, like biodiversity loss, environmental pollution, climate crisis, our relationship to birds as pets, but also in animal farming, for example, in cultural practices. But also we talked about the colonial history of the collection and its present use. So all in all, a whole variety of topics that are highly relevant today. So what makes this project special to us is that opening up the process also opened up our perspective on the collection, and also what we as an exhibition team can do with these kinds of presentations. And it also encouraged us to take this further. It's kind of a pilot project for us, and over the next years we will open more collections to the public. And yeah, if you're interested, stay tuned or come to Berlin and see how this develops, or invite us again to the conference. Thank you.
Our next speaker will be an online speaker from Japan. He will be talking about Japan's Natural History Museum transformation in a time of socio-ecological crisis. And I will invite Yunahu Zhang, professor, student of a PhD student of Hokkaido University. So please.
Well, thank you for your kind introduction. I'm honored to share insights at the 2024 ICOM-Nathist conference today. I'll be discussing the role of the museums in a time of socio-ecological crisis, drawing from Japan's experience, and I also hope to shed light on how Japanese unique relationship and with nature and the notion with nature can inspire us to rethink the human-nature connection relationship in the Anthropocene. Well, the two images on this slide I showed is the Rikuzen Takata City Museum. First one in the aftermath of the devastating earthquake, and the second one is the renewal in 11 years after. The earthquake claimed not only many of the museum's collection, the natural history collection and the cultural collection, but also several staff members. This tragedy served as a wake-up call in Japan to reconsider the role of Natural History Museum and the preservation of their collection. Sorry, I'm going to the next slide. Yeah, and to start, I'll briefly cover the history of museum in Japan. During the Edo period, Japan exhibited the nature object to share knowledge among scholars and entertain the public with some rare curiosities. Then, influenced by the Western science and philosophy, Japan eventually opened its first museum. Initially, it was dominated by the natural history collection. However, as Japan modernized, the natural history became less central. So after today, Natural History Museum, along with their curators, are really a minority within the museum sector. Well, the 2011 East Japan earthquake exposed the long-term vulnerability of Natural History Museum. Collection rescue efforts were delayed and primarily handled by the volunteers level, not the national level. One key issue is that Japan's lack of the laws and policies that ensure timely national or public action to protect this collection in the extreme situation. The natural history collection are rarely falling under the museum or heritage-related legislation. And when they do, the focus is typically on the human activity, the humanity value behind this collection, rather than their intrinsic value. Well, this reflects a broader biases in public and governmental perception, where natural history collection is undervalued compared to cultural properties. Historically, the nationalism in Japan emphasized the preservation of cultural properties and linking arts to Japanese identity. Museums back that time were seen as a platform for some sort of national policies in the Meiji period, such as the industrial promotion, the resource protection during wartime, and educational improvement, where, for example, the natural history collection was viewed as a tool for purpose like agricultural education, for the promotion of industrial or production, rather than as heritage in its own. But I also want to mention that many natural history museums in Japan were developed during the post-war economic growth period. So back then, the ambiguous collecting purpose were at a very early stage of the museum, and unsustainable management and inadequate financial support have all contributed to the challenges that collection in Japan are facing today. By 2020, Japan had 228 museums with biological specimens, but only 112 of them employed the natural science curators. So on average, it's just 2.5 curators each with a natural history background. Well, many museums of other time have even less than one who are specializing in natural history. This is the graph showing that in some area there are only one or two curators for the entire region. So they could be the curators. It could be really difficult for curators to do some types of new work, and they are also facing with some challenges like in the new types of work such as collection preservation or education for the sustainable development. They are lacking of time, funding, experiences, good project, and public support for those initiatives. Particularly, I think in the topic we are talking about today, the socio-ecological context, the discussion usually on the climate change or the sustainability, I hate to say so, but are frequently dominated or leading by European and American perspective, which can feel a little bit overwhelming for Japan's museum, struggling to tackle this global issue in a local relative way. But not only the museum are not prepared, the public of Japan are not prepared to participate in the action yet. So in terms of the public opinion, research from the worldwide independent network of market research reveals a relative low level of interest in environmental issue in Japan compared to the other country. A government survey I didn't include on this slide, I'm sorry, indicate that, well, the public is more concerned about the natural disaster and the poor harvests due to the climate change. There is less awareness or urgency around the biodiversity, the natural resources, and the pandemics. Well, overall, although there's a growing interest in social ecological problems, translating this into the meaningful action of everyone remains a topic, a challenge in Japan, and I think both in the other part of this world. Okay, so this is just some other data that I talked about. And then I want to talk a little bit more about the nature in Japan. The Japanese concept of nature is complex. Traditionally, there is no clear division between nature and humanity. The humans, animals, the plants are seen as integral parts of the whole nature. Human is not governing over the nature, human is not conquering over the nature. And this kind of a way of thinking, well, is also reflected in my own country, China. And well, even today, this perception persists, making it difficult to distinguish between, okay, so what is the natural part and what is the cultural part in many cases of the real life in Japan. Well, in fact, you could even argue that Japanese art is a reflection of Japanese nature. Japan's diverse climates and environments, combined with the frequent natural disaster like the earthquake, the tsunami, the typhoon, have created a cultural understanding that the nature both gives and takes. So when we talk about the topic of coexist with nature or in harmony with nature, we may be visioning the desired feature that the nature is well preserved and the sustainability is managed. But in some Japanese contexts, especially the region that have experienced some really hard time, coexistence with nature or harmony with nature often means specifically living with the threat of disaster. As a result, from this situation, when we discuss about the social ecological transformation, it's crucial to integrate the long-term and short-term perspective and balance the large-scale global issue with local regional needs. My work with both the large and small museums in Japan have shown me that in dealing with social ecological crisis, there is no single recipe, formula, or guidebook. Each museum, for the first time, maybe they need to find their own interpretation on this topic locally and the goals for the transformation locally. For example, I'm currently involved in a Pioneer project aiming at creating the educational materials for children about the climate change in Hokkaido. Well, in Hokkaido, this region, the fish stock have been declining due to the global warming, but local fishermen often blame it on the sales for the reduced catch, even though the human activity, at least this time, is the primary cause. And scientists are struggling to communicate the truth as the fishermen's livelihoods and the cultural practice are deeply rooted in the conflicts with the sales. Well, this highlight how changing people's mind, how changing people's value isn't always straightforward. What has changed is not objectively the natural environment, it's not the population of the fish, but everyone's cultural life in this situation. As a result, we cannot just use design informatics skills to display the data to everyone. There's a whole bunch of things getting involved and need to tell a story about. That a fish you eat every day is getting pricey for a reason, that you may need to eat the fish you never ate before to support the fishing industry. That for the fisherman, it could be a chance to build up a new brand, or the fish become easier to catch as the water is becoming warm, and faced with the fact that sea is changing fast and the changes keeps going. Well, it's in the educational material we are developing, we aim to use the natural history collection to tell stories that bridge scientific facts with cultural lives. By making the environment crisis personal and relatable, we hope to foster a sense of connection with the problem and the responsibility among the public, even if it's just a teeny tiny way. The idea behind is also trying to reconstruct the way that museums in Japan tell a story by reconsidering the notion of nature of traditional Japan, that you can just take the nature and culture apart in a whole scenario. And it could be a good approach and inspiring to bridge the environmental research facts, the scientific parts with the public life. Another example of museum-led initiatives is the use of food culture to connect the local biodiversity with everyday life. Well, in Japan's museum, it's not refreshing to do so, to introduce the scientific problem, the environmental fact through food or some other sort of cultural things. As a country's relationship, the country's notion with the nature is deeply embedded in the traditions, and it's easier for Japanese to resonate. So by linking the collection to people's daily lives, of course, not just food, culture, museum can make an impact on behaviors and awareness around the sustainability. And yeah, sometimes it's it's like a basic thing in Japan, but it's too basic that we forget to systematicize this kind of way of thinking, this kind of method. So during this project, we want to systematically learn how it works. So in conclusion, the key challenges for museum in Japan is to turn awareness, the increasing awareness into real actions, using natural history collection to tell stories that connect natural and cultural narratives is an effective approach. Well, shifting the public value in Japan might be too ambitious at this stage. Museum can start by defining clear goals for transformation. So do you want to talk about the global topic? Do you want to talk about the local problem? What is the aim and the scales? And whether that's raising awareness, influencing behavior, or sparkling the action. And ultimately, I hope this will help the museum in the Natural History Museum in Japan to prove their value to both the public and to the government, and potentially leading to a more effective laws and policymaking for the collection and preservation that Japan is lacking right now. And yeah, that's for my presentation. Thank you for your attention. Sorry for my cat is annoying.
Now we will move to questions and answers. And first, I would like to invite Nicolas. Go to the stage. We will have questions. And Juhi, please. Slavko. Our colleagues. Would you like? I'm sorry, but no. Well, I'm not familiar with the technical way of having questions from the online. You do it. Oh, okay. So you need a mic? Okay. No, actually not. But before I ask the questions, I will let our audience, if they have any questions. Yes, please. Please.
Bonjour, Agnès Parent du Musée.
Hello, Agnès Parent from the museum in Paris. I have a question for everybody, a question in French.
1 minute, okay. Or I can
just 1 minute till.
In English, if it's I can try to translate the question in English.
Okay.
Sur vos
During your presentations, there were several points that interested me, and you talked about the systemic approach and the link between that in anthropology. And it's a very local question. If you come back to Hopkins, I don't know if you know Rob Hopkins, and when he was talking about a desirable future, he wanted to know how today we can change values, certainly, when we look at nature, but maybe we should adopt a local approach in order to have an impact on people so they can see what's happening at local level, and how all of that can bring us to a reflection on our desirable future. How can we change our actions? So is our role then...
You said that hope is very important in the Naturalistic Museum, of course, but how we can change our values, our relation with nature, and of course, to give hope for a desirable future.
So, who is answering?
Okay, I can start. That's a very interesting and very important question. On my start, of course, because of time, I mainly focus on, let's say, the basics, what is behind. But of course, so maybe I focus more on the fact that we have to challenge values, okay? And like the last proposal. But of course, at the same time, it would be much better in a proposal for the audience, for instance, an exhibition or what else, at the same time to propose some tracks for new narratives. Of course, that's why it's so important and there are, I think this morning, the politics talk about a place here where there are a museum or a place for new narratives. That's very, very important. You're totally right. I thank you for adding this dimension. Personally, I didn't use it in my talk because I focus more on the fact that we must be on the field of values, and that's something that is important for us. But of course, I think it's more efficient and intelligent to tackle the topic this way. And at the same time, open spaces for thinking of the future and maybe to, of course, not only open discussion, but also present to the audience some tracks and maybe to work on it and positive way of thinking of the future. You're totally right. I totally agree. Thank you for...
Yes. The terms eco-museums, it is started at 70s. My opinion, all of us must be local museums. Involving local people is most important thing. I say it's not important to have a beautiful building and waiting for visitors. That's not our roles. We must talk with society, with local society especially. All local society must take part of our work. It is not enough only we make displays and it's enough. No. Local government, local municipality, and of course museum must be educational base for all questions. We talk about that issues in ICOM also, changing rules of museums. Museums are no more static institution. It was in 18th centuries, Now we are very important part of society. In museum, we must talk, and make great storytelling, not just make good display and nothing. No, we must talk with, in two sides different conversation. Maybe some topic will be hard, but it is our home. We must manage and talk about our home. Our home is planet Earth. So crucial rules in that is all museums, but especially natural history museums. And in that case, our roles is very important.
Sorry, I couldn't listen to your question, the whole question properly, but what I understood from the two speakers, that how we can do something in this regard when we are talking about nature-culture integration and all. So for me personally, in India, there are outreach activities, outreach to people, as he mentioned, and we are working in this regard. We are reaching out to people who are not coming to museum because we cannot wait for visitors to come and to enjoy. So we are reaching out to them. And personally, as I mentioned, I am working on a project where we reach out to people. So not only about the cultural history museums, as I am working with all these museums, as I am an academician, so I'm more involved in the policy level, policy making. So whatever we have done in this regard, it has become a successful case studies where we engage communities. So we do it with cultural history, cultural heritage museum, but particularly for the natural history museums, what we found is it has become a remarkable thing, because when we are talking about nature and culture linkage in India, so when natural history museums are reaching out to the communities, so they are involving them as the custodians, as the practitioners, and then they are helping the people in promoting awareness by leading examples to the young generation. And so there are examples. I talked about the Bishnoi community. So natural history museums are involved with these local communities, indigenous communities whose survival is totally dependent on nature. So these examples have been really successful by reaching out to them and by bringing them back to the museum. And it has been, but we are new to it, and we are still struggling to make a path in this regard. Thank you.
If you excuse, I would like to be a little bit more provocative with my answer. And I think hope is not the thing we should talk about. Urgency is what we should talk about. Because we need to change, and we need to change quickly, and quick changes don't come smoothly. And I'm not talking about techniques like storytelling, displays. I'm more about our perspective of, or philosophy of what a natural history museum is and should do. Just two examples what I mean. One is, we've heard that today. We need to save our planet for the planet's sake, whatsoever in nature. Nature and the planet doesn't care about us. We will leave as the dinosaurs will, and something else will come up, and the planet will be absolutely fine. It is our problem, Homo sapiens' problem, to deal with nature, to secure it in a way that we can survive. And this is not a perspective a normal natural history museum takes. And the second point is also whom we have to address if it's urgent. And again, you know, I like to play it a little bit provocative, and I'm overdoing it now a little bit, but we have been preaching that the next generation is our target group. Given that we are all professionals and we do a good job, we had thousands and thousands and thousands of kids running through our education system, our exhibition. How come our planet gets worse and worse? With focusing on the next generation, we do something really rude. I want to place a picture in your head. A little girl named Greta sitting there demonstrating for a better future. With focusing on the next generation, we leave those kids alone. We must support them reaching out to the adults that make decisions today. And that's a big part of what I think is the duty of natural history museums in a crisis. Addressing the people that can make a change and not putting the load on the shoulders of the next generation, which didn't work in the past. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay. It is very...
So from my perspective is that when we talk about the really local problems and we want to figure out what is people in the area caring about or what they can do, we are inviting not just the museum professional, the environmental researchers into the discussion, but we invite people from every community, like the middle school student, the high school student, to really listen to their maybe we call non-professional opinions. But speaking of the environment change, no one knows which is going to be changed, and it keeps changing, and no one knows what is the end of the changing. So with kind of this question without answer, and we who work in the museum should not give the answer, but the answer is generated by everyone, even those without the professional thinking or skills. So that's, from my experience, I think it's quite important. Thank you.
Thank you. And you showed us the steps that we need. It's like awareness, behavior, activism. But I think you forgot one is knowledge. We are the place for science literacy. And people, to raise awareness, they need knowledge, because they need knowledge to know what to do. So this is also important. And also we were talking earlier that, and it goes to the provocative question, that museums should be a safe place to raise questions and discussions about topics that they might not be able to discuss out of the museums. We have to be a safe place to them. And I would like to raise another opportunity of dealing with the public and awareness is recently I joined the Center for Citizen Science. And citizen science, we work in both ways. One way is when a scientist wants to know something and he asks the public to help him. But the other one, which also we encourage, is like in a village. They notice that the water is not correct, the water is polluted. So they create a citizen science project for monitoring the pollution of the water, and as a strong people of the community, they can go to the municipality and show, look, we have a problem in the water. What are you going to do about it? It makes the community, the society involved in issues, and by that they also have a strong position to approach the municipality, the government. You must do something about this. So this is also very important. And I think it's also a job of natural history museums to engage with citizen science.
I agree with colleagues. It is not provocative. It's a really just fact, as I told you. Yes, a lot of children running through our museum, but the most important thing is decision makers. That's why I talk eco-museum. Eco, not ecological. Eco means city, municipality, all local visitors. So, yes, children is most important, but also important is decision makers to be involved with children, with us. That's the way that we can change something and do better future. So this is the fact. It is not provocative. Thank you. I agree.
If I may add something, of course, I think in terms of learning or impact on the audience, the key point is to have meaning, to give meaning to what we are. People must give meaning. So of course, from that point of view, we need to be close to the specific audience, local audience. And of course, in my talk, I present, let's say, a global Western view of what is nature-culture dichotomy. And it's not, of course, we saw in India, and of course, it's a case in Japan, it's totally different. But in a way, also, the Western country nature-culture was spread all over the world because of colonization. And in a sense, in India, also in Japan, there are humanity museum and natural museum, of course. So, okay, so we have to, at different scales, adapt to the specific audience. And of course, the topic of the in the overall framework of the Anthropocene, we must address and with specific point of view. That's the first point. And the second one, I mean, probably to be provocative or to say there is urgency to do something is a way for many people to give meaning to, but also it's the contrary for many others, you know. And for instance, there is an example in Switzerland, I won't quote this, but they try for the permanent exhibition only and mainly to have a very urgent message for this. And they have now the feedback of their audience, and many people say, okay, it's nice, well, but I'm not sure I will go back to your museum. Yeah, so it's very different. We have to adapt, and of course, that's why I like what you said. And yes, you have to deal with different point of view, because in order not to have this strong rejection of a discourse that is too negative, in fact, on the situation.
Can I make just shortly one point clear? I was talking about what I think should be our philosophy and our approach, our aim or goal or our understanding of the situation. I was not talking about the situation, how we should do our exhibitions, because the only way to reach people is to create a pleasant place. And you can't, and the other thing is, if we talk about the problems that we have, I mean, there is only one problem, and that is Homo sapiens. Yeah, and it's the way how we deal with nature, how we deal with each other, how cruel are we, and if we don't have in the next coming 1,000 years some sort of social evolution, we will kill ourselves. That's it, point. That's the main problem, but you can't, I mean, you can't get to conclusions or to action if you destroy people mentally. You can't do that. And you can't also say, you know, in order to save the planet, you are not allowed to fly, you're not allowed to drink out of plastic bottles, you're not allowed to eat meat, you're not allowed to do this, to do that. We had an exhibition we prepared on environmental issues due to our behavior. And our team basically needed psychological treatment because we went into depression, because there's nothing you can do. If you do the one thing, there's a trade-off there. So, and that goes back to the one point I wanted to make. It's not, you know, in order to save, if you look into it from a scientific point, you know, the thing is we need to make better decisions, but decisions can't be made by the average persons. It's politics, you know, and it's a bigger thing. And if you need to talk about the urgency, of course, it needs to be in a pleasant way, and it needs to be in a way where you allow people also to pull back when it gets too heavy, so they come back and try next time. Yeah. So I make a big difference between how the exhibition looks and what I have behind it in mind when I do it.
Thank you. So do we have more questions? Yes, please.
Is that still working? Thank you. Nicholas Watts, Commonwealth Association of Museums, amongst other things. Mainly a question to Berlin. Being aware that 90 to 95% of most collections are not on display, they're stored away somewhere. Was this 100% of your birds? And is this possibly a way to get museums occasionally to display far more of their artifacts that are in storage in interaction with the public? And to come on to the interaction, I don't know if you have a stuffed dodo in the... There's no stuffed dodo. You do?
There is no stuffed dodo, there is only a skeleton.
Oh, okay, sorry. But I just wonder if the audience or the visitors were confronted with extinct species, and if that had a particular impact and resonance with them. Thank you.
Yes, and we have only 1 minute.
Okay, need to be quick, thank you. This is what we show in that exhibition hall now is 100% of the collection that was in that one hall that had to move. Our bird collection is bigger. Maybe, you know, extinct species in natural history collections, of course. You would wonder how many quaggas and Tasmanian devils you'd find in natural history collections and when they were collected just prior to extinction. Yes, they are in there and visitors see them, being it on display in an exhibition or in collections. We will open more collections. I think the biggest takeaway for us is that you can open the doors of scientific collections, and it does create a complete different mindset and a different behavior of visitors being confronted with these objects, and you get more in a dialogue engagement than in curated exhibitions, because they are in a curated exhibition. I tell a story, and the visitor is going to follow it or dropping out. But in the collection, there are so many things that you have. It's, you know, there is always some sort of a connection, and it raises more questions, and it opens up the mind. And that is our learning with collections, and we will keep doing it. By the way, we're not the first ones. Quai Branly in Paris is one of the early museums that opened a scientific collection or made it accessible in an exhibition.
Unfortunately, our time is out and we need to go to lunch, but it's also an opportunity to approach the speakers and ask them questions and talk to them. So Philippe will give us information about lunch.
Une petite information, nous reprenons à 1h30, 13h30. Donc il faut que vous soyez ici.
We resume at
Donc nous allons quitter le lieu où se tient le lunch.
So please be back slightly before 1:30. We move to another building. I think it's 100 meters away from here. It's a very nice building. You can see on the screen the main entrance, and these are actually this is the new building that we will be moving to in a few weeks. Please, yeah, what Fedra told me. Please leave your headsets at your place, on your seat, right? Please leave the headsets in the room, on your seat. Have I said everything, Fedra? Am I good? Yeah?